There's a lot of shit that you went through that millions of other people have gone through. We often think that we are so alone in our problems. Be proud of the shit that you've gone through, because the person that you were maybe years ago didn't ever think that they'd get through it. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Fill the Gap podcast. This is episode somewhere in the double digits, before 15, after 10, I think. And this podcast is sponsored by the greatest shirt and overall men's apparel, casual men's apparel, up to upscale formal men's apparel company in the world. And that's Cutsklothing. I'm rocking one of their hats. This hat's damn near like melon, if you guys know that brand. Dope hat, long sleeve. If you guys are watching the video podcast, yes. If you're on the video podcast for the next 15 minutes, maybe you'll see these little dots on me come from my window. But anyway, nobody's perfect. I had to record a little bit later today. And I'm recording on a Thursday. I usually record on a Monday. But your boy was out of town for FitCon last week with ON. That was fun. Conventions are fun. It's interesting to see how many people just run up and grab samples of amino energy, because it's the best drink in the world. Look at this. This is my first and only one today, because I don't know, I try not to drink too much caffeine. But let's jump right into it. I have been doing well, and by doing well, that's so relative, because there's a lot of different aspects of life, right? What does that necessarily mean? Does it mean financially, emotionally, physically, relationship-wise, friendship-wise? Like, what does that mean? I think all of them are kind of tied together in some capacity. And by doing well, and what I mean by I've been doing well, that doesn't even necessarily mean that things are going right. But I don't know. When I say I've been doing well, I've just been in a good headspace. That's the one thing that I always wish for, pray for my friends, is mental clarity, because the confusion of life is what can just fuck you up in the head. Having a murky outlook on the things that are happening in your life or to you in life are what really can just mess you up, because you don't know how you're supposed to react in particular situations. And that's why I'm like, all right, how can I get a handle on the things that don't seem in my control in life? Because like I said, being things going well, it's all relative. Things going well is not only all relative, but it's also perspective. Because could I make $1 million tomorrow? Things would be going far better than they were today, right? But do I need that? And am I going to feel bad about myself because I didn't make $1 million tomorrow? Shit, I don't know, maybe. I mean, I don't set up those lofty goals for myself, but I don't know. What I want to talk about today is the one thing that we have control of in every aspect of our life, and that is how we react to particular situations. And so much of that is perspective. I used to play sports all the time. Now I'm washed up. But back when I played, every single thing that happened to you, good or bad, was all about perspective. You get benched, opportunity to get better, opportunity to get the mental reps that you need in order to be that much better when you become a starter again. You become a starter, opportunity to get better, showcase your skill set, put on a show in front of the fans, whatever the hell it might be, help your team win. Conversely, I think that this is the correct use of that word. Conversely, I could look at it the opposite way, right? I get benched. Oh, it's somebody else's fault. Oh, I'm down in the dumps. Oh, I'm not going to be able to get out of this. Look at me, I'm losing my reps. Look at me, I can't get better. I can't show the coach that I'm getting better. I become the starter. There's also a negative way I could look at that. That is, why did the coach put me in this game knowing that I'm not going to play well? This isn't a good situation for me. The guys around me suck. Whatever the hell it might be, right? Perspective is 100% the thing that is going to change the output of your like what you're looking at in your life. So to bring that back full circle, there are, I guess you'd say, millions of people, if not tens of millions of people that want your life. I don't know who I'm pointing at. I don't know who's listening. You could have got fired today. You could have got cheated on today. You could have got divorced with today. You could have gotten bankrupt today. And there are literally millions of people that would change places with you in a heartbeat. And maybe they shouldn't even be wanting to do that. But everybody looks at their situation and is always trying to better it in some way, because things can always get worse. Things can always be better. And what's going to set you free from that, or what's going to give you the best outlook on all this, is perspective, right? So I know there's a ton of stuff that we complain about as people, myself included, that there are people out there begging for, right? I'm recording this podcast on Thursday because I was super backed up from work because I was at FitCon last week. And I'm like, oh man, like I'm so busy, blah, 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 this and that. Like now I got to do it later in the week. There are a ton of people out there that would love the opportunity to fly out and do a convention with their team and not look at it as a burden in any capacity. And here I am complaining about it in some way. And so that's like, how are you going to look at these things? The oldest way you can think about of this is like the glass half full, glass half empty type thing. But that's just one-off instances. There's a literal chemical makeup and difference in your brain when you look at things in a positive light. It's absolutely insane. You could go through the most horrendous breakup. I've been through some bad breakups. I'd say one was probably worse than the other. And for so long, I looked at it in like a very negative way. I looked at it as like, I was this, I was that. Now I for sure wasn't perfect, right? I would say that I was half of the reason why we broke up, right? But that relationship had its claws dug into me for a long time. And it wasn't until I was able to look back at it and be like, hey, you know what? I was able to learn so much about this. I was able to break this cycle. Because I was able to look back at this in a much more positive light, and all the things that I learned, the experiences I got to share with that person, the experiences that I wanted to share that I maybe shared with somebody else after, that I was like, hey, this is like, you opened me up to a particularly different type of world, you know? That's my dog. So I usually take her collar off. And I don't know. It's just, we always have such a grim look at, especially past relationships, right? You can even talk about this on the football side with like teams, right? You talk about like a breakup, you talk about getting traded from a team, you talk about transferring schools. I got done dirty there. I wasn't getting PT. Coach sucked, coach hated me, players sucked, team sucked, whatever the hell it is, right? It's never like, hey, you know what? Not say it's never, but a lot of times the better outlook is, you know what? The team needed to make a different decision. It wasn't a good fit for me. I probably shouldn't have made that decision at 17 years old. And I didn't do everything that I needed to do to make that the best fit for me, which is the fucking great answer, right? You usually don't hear that from like a 19, 20-year-old kid, let alone 31-year-old guy like me. Same thing with the relationships, right? In today's day and age, it's so taboo to talk about like past relationships, not even understanding that so much of the past relationships necessarily are what have made you the person that you are today. Whether that, obviously there's things that are bad that have happened in particular relationships. There are things that you've done that were bad and poor. But if you don't have the wherewithal to take a mental note of, all right, this happened in this situation, this is what I could have done differently, then you aren't really learning anything from those past relationships. And with your current partner, even, you can bring up some of these things, and because if there are particular things that trigger you in some capacity that were onset by a previous relationship, then don't you think that it would be a good idea that the person that you're dating now or in the future know about some of those things? So it's always don't bring up the past. Like, I don't want to talk about the past. Like, well, no, the past, while it shouldn't be brought up in regards to like throwing it in someone's face, it's okay. And in sometimes to look at it as something positive, that it's like, why don't I learn from someone else's mistakes? And so that's important. I personally believe that it's important. Like in my current relationship, like I talked a lot, probably too much, about like past relationships and the reason why I acted in particular ways in relationships and the reason why I didn't in other ways in relationships. And it's just almost like a sense of pride when you're able to come through that, especially if it's a very volatile, violent could be the wrong word, volatile, passionate, and just like hyper emotional and emotionally taxing type of relationship. It's always good to know that the person that weathered this storm and the person that created this storm should be so fucking proud of what they went through, rather than having to bury it underneath because you're trying to save someone's pride or ego, you know? Be proud of the shit that you've gone through, because the person that you were maybe years ago didn't ever think that they'd get through it. And I don't know, maybe that's like deeper than we usually talk about. By I say we, I mean just me talking to a camera. But there's a lot of stuff that people can hang their hats on that they've been through that a lot of other people haven't gone through. And in the same breath, there's a lot of shit that you went through that millions of other people have gone through. We often think that we are so alone in our problems and that nobody else has faced these things and it's going to be so insurmountable. And that's why social media is good part of the time. That's why having a good network is good. That's why being open and honest about things that have happened in your life and your feelings is good, because those things that you feel shame about, those things that you feel shame, embarrassment, you have to hide. Somebody else has dealt with them, you know? Somebody else has found a solution to that problem. While it may not be the solution for you, you at least know that somebody came through not unscathed, but they wear their battle scars proud. And that's something that everybody can learn from, is that the more that you hold on to these things and you become so afraid to show people who you really are, the more that you kind of act adversely, you know, and the more that you become anxious about letting people know what you really have going on. So I don't know, not too prevalent, or not even prevalent, but relevant in my life currently. But at the same time, I know friends, I have friends, I know people that are just going through things and they're shouldering this burden and they're carrying it in silence. And I was always somebody that has done that. And it's a fucking tall order to do that, especially when you're trying to hold onto somebody else's burdens, you know? Being an athlete, especially playing the ultimate team sport, we're always taught to lean on your teammates, right? Do your job and they'll do their job and you'll have success. But a lot of ways, I was the type of person that I would shoulder so much of my own burden, angst, because I didn't want to be somebody else's burden. And I'm sure that ties back to feeling like I was a burden growing up. That's maybe for another podcast, or you can read about it in my book that I'm looking at right now. I'll drop the link down below for this, but athletes specifically, we try to shoulder so much burden, and we try to just be like, all right, we're nobody else's problem. I've talked to friends that are going through some shit right now, and they're like, they shut down. Like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't need to be a problem for you. I'm not a charity case. I'm not this. I'm not that. And I'm like, dude, just talk to me. I don't have all the answers, right? But I'm going to be somebody that you can at least run things through, because the more that you build it up in your head, the more that you're going to start going crazy about shit. The more that you're going to just start feeling lonely, depressed, dig yourself down into that hole. And I'm somebody who's been there, because I'm somebody that just wouldn't ask for help, wouldn't talk to anybody about my problems. And part of the reason why I do this podcast is because it helps me sift through some of my problems, you know, some of the things that I've been dealing with. And when all the dust settles, I will be extremely proud of the person that I've become, and I will definitely never forget the process that I've gone through in order to get there. And I'll fuck up so many times. I have, and I will more, and I won't feel shameful. I won't feel any shame about it, you know. I'll feel remorse at times. Obviously, I'm human, but I accept who I am. And a lot of people are still just sitting in that storm, feeling worse about themselves. And you gotta know. I mean, fuck it. You guys need someone to talk to? Talk to me. Talk in the comments. Shoot me a DM. I'm not a therapist or anything like that, but I do have ears, and I don't know. This is turning like some self-love type deal, but I'll close out like with this. I saw this on some TikTok or reel or whatever, but there was a group of scientists that did a study, and what they did is they grew trees over X amount of years in an outdoor environment that had all the natural weather and whatnot tied to it, wind, rain, sun, whatever. And they grew the same species of trees in an indoor environment that had no wind. It still had the water, it still had the sun, still had everything. What they did is when they removed that covering, they found that the trees that never had any wind pushing them, swaying them side to side, had much weaker roots, and they were pulled out of the ground. And what this means is that this storm that you're going through right now, this storm that you have been pushed side to side and beat to shit through, whether you put yourself through it or not, is ultimately going to make you stronger. So that tree that you become on the back end of this shit is going to be a tree that's going to stand strong and stand for the lifetime. Because the other one, if you just never had this, you're going to get blown over at the first sight of anything. So that's that. Maybe it was a little more serious than the usual ones. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on my website, and buy a book, because this is the kind of shit that I talk about. That's it, y'all.